This is chapter 7 of Godzilla, creepypasta, and just ignore the water machine in the background. It's not that loud, but and here we are, the final one. I don't like to discuss this part, and it still bothers me very much. But it's something I have to do so that I can put this behind me. People deserve to know at this point. I was well aware of the game's unnatural nature, but death was different than the other world. While the others were certainly strange and sometimes frightening, the world Zenith was like a nightmare, and I didn't have to go any further than the board screen to see something was wrong with Zenith. The first thing I noticed was the blood-red texture of the board, and the music was an eerie whistling tune. I noticed that I had Soma and Angus battle back up, and I felt better for a second. Then I scrolled over to the right to see who my enemies would be this time. This time it was Destroyer, Gubba, and Gubba. But judging the icon, it was different Gubba than the original, standing on the ground instead of flying. The corpsely detailed pinkish red icon also caught my eye. I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be, and I was afraid to find out. Going back to my side of the board, I decided that there wasn't much choice to do but the usual routine, going to the quiz level before doing anything else. I was not ready for what happened. I jumped back with this appearance accomplished by a terrible version of the password theme. It looked as if Face had victim of some terrible glitch. This was meant by "Will you miss me?" Did he know this would happen? My thoughts were stopped short as I noticed the screen was glitching, seemingly falling apart. While I interacted, so I quickly rushed. And when I got back to the board, I somehow gained a new monster. I asked if I wanted one. I tried to select it, and this happened. What the heck is going on? The game's behavior was scaring me, and if it hasn't even started up the levels yet, I couldn't understand why it was randomly given the new character and the denied use of it. But for the time being, there was that little could be done, and I viewed the last TV screen. No music, no animation, dead. Every instant I had telling me to stop playing, I just turned the game off. And something in the game itself might have been trying to warn me as just how horrible the last was. But then every stretch of the way I was compelled to give something I couldn't do that. And the last one besides, after taunting me with memories of Melissa, I felt the game owed me some answers. I noticed that the first level was a red temple, so at least I would be familiar with the graphics, if nothing else. And I went with Godzilla, the monster I was not familiar with. Godzilla had been shrunk. The level of the score monsters meters have vanished, and the blue temple statue faces were back up. The music was similar to the blue temple. Also, strange haunting vocals. I tried to get my spins up thinking, well, and if this level is a blue temple, and that might mean there are no enemies to deal with. How wrong was I? After a short walk, all the statues' eyes started glowing, and a pack of beasts from the shadow labyrinth came charging into me. Since they were coming from right off the screen, I had to fight my way through them. The battle really tested my reflexes, but thanks to my speed, I The all fails the power-ups after dying, which helped recover the damage it had given me. However, as I continued through the hallway, the statue's eyes glowed again, summoning another wave. It seemed to be some number of them, but I was less prepared this time and took more damage. I had gone through 4 of these waves until I reached the end of the hall, where I heat beamed as one of the monsters over the edge into the abyss. At first it seemed like I reached a dead end, but after the statue's eyes stopped glowing, a brick path slowly appeared before me. I followed the path, which kept moving me towards the right until I stopped at the wall where I was to go vertically by jumping up ledges. Along the way I encountered new creatures and some sort of strange shrine which had a statue of the hell beast on some kind of creature I didn't recognize. As I went through the path, checking down for such a heavy downward to avoid other enemies, which were painful in this part of the stage. They didn't have any attacks, but they could easily shove you over the edge off the platform. At the end of the tunnel, there were a few small platforms floating above nothingness. I landed on one of the towards the left of the screen, and then they became something came down from above. It looked like a blue angel from the graveyard, except now it was red and a skull face. Any of pleasant feelings I had from the blue angel, I were not present with the red one. And as if hovering around its eye sockets, starting glowing just like the statues summoning monsters to attack me. Surely this was not the same benevolent being I encountered before. This must be some kind of imposter. The battle was nerve-wracking as I started off with nearly half my health and I had to deal with multiplying opponents, as well as the threat of gravity to make things even worse. As the Red Angel took damage, some other planes fell, until only 3 remained. But my luck had not ran out yet. Just when I thought it was over, I struck the Red Angel one more time, and it turned out to be the last hit all it could take. Just as the Red Angel completely disarmed the game, instantly I went back to Zeth's board. I moved Martha over to the nearest stage from the Red Temple, which seemed to be a garbled mess of letter spelling kill, and began playing. As suspectful, all the levels graphics were made of jumbled letters, and Martha, just like Godzilla, was shrunk to half the size. I began to suspect that Zeth's levels would be like this. The background music was terrible. Someone put a NES cable making into Blender and then piecing them back together into a song. I had turned the volume down because of it. Playing as Martha made avoiding the enemies easier, but they were nonetheless determined to get all at me. The first enemies I saw were the headless giants and later on their war hybrids monsters pieced together from previous bosses like the Bolian heading thing seen above. 5 minutes had gone by as I didn't see anything new, and the level shifting into another segment. The music changed from a loud and annoying beeps into some far more amazing and menacing. The level graphics also changed, now looking blood-drenched junkyard. The way everything in this level was red made it sick. The enemies multiplied in a number of never ceasing to follow after me. and became harder and harder to avoid. At the end of the level, the situation reached a climax as swarms of monsters fused together in one ominous, terrifying hug. Once I had gotten through the internal shock, I discovered the way to destroy the thing. Constantly shooting eye beams at the honey cluster that formed its heads. If you attacked anywhere else, it would regain that damage. Even with that knowledge, this was an extremely difficult fight, I'd say. It was a hard fight, it was as hard as fighting the moon beast was, if not harder. Its common attack was lunging forward with its arms covered with adrenaline saws and blades. If they attacked you, it would instantly drain health. Well, when it was over, the remaining monsters collapsed into a heap. Then they, on the ground below them, started to decline and sink towards the bottom of the screen. When I came back to the board, I thought to myself, so far the game has been putting the easiest levels for us. If that's the case, how bad will the rest of the Zenith be? With 2 levels down and 3 to go, my monsters and I had taken our foothold in World of Nightmares that was Zenith. Deciding what action to take next was more tense and difficult than ever before. But ultimately, I had no way of knowing what the next levels would be like, or how well my monsters would be prepared for them. So my only opinion was to guess. I tried to interpret what the icons of the next levels ahead were. The last level before the boss battles was obviously representing some kind of volcanic area with lava and opening flames. The middle icon I still didn't get, except that it looked fleshy and vaguely like an organ of some kind, oddly oversized as well. The one I was nearest to and about to enter looked like thorny vines covering a puddle of blood. I guess that this would be the level with blood rivers, like the chase level of Dementia. As such, I went with Angus because due to his rolling move, he would have had the fastest speed while submerging. The level which I call Blood Lake looked like I expected rivers of blood accomplished by thorn-covering vines, which were scattered along the sides of the ground. The music was rather faint, but I could hear a distant drum beat and a few other instruments, a lot of echoes, and sometimes it sounded like someone was hitting a drum underwater. I was disappointed to see that Angus was shrunk just as Godzilla and Martha had been. Apparently all the Zenith levels would be like this. I felt less secure with my giant monsters, no longer so giant. I walked along without interpretation only for a minute until my path reached a dead end.